Last week we already discussed how to create multiple data sets. In the last week class, all we did is in the data name, we have given two data sets which we want to create, and we have used data lines and created two data sets at one place. So similarly, we also use cart statement. What did we do here? Yeah, why did we use double trailing operators? When we use double trailing operators, the variable values will be continuing. Once it ended with 6, and the loop will be going again to employee number. So this will be going again to the value will be printed in employee number variable. So what was our next step? We created put, and what does put does? Put prints the values in the log. If you want to print it anywhere in as an txt file or in C drive, you can do that. Or also you can print the put values in the output window by just using file print. So in today's class, we will be discussing arithmetic. So we discussed multiple data sets, double trailing operator, and how to use put statement. We'll also be discussing now arithmetic functions, statistical functions, truncation functions, and character functions. So from here starts the functions. So different type of functions. How do we apply it on variables? Options are different from functions. What are dataset options? If someone asks you in interview, what are the options you have used? You should say keep, drop, label, OBS. All these are options. From now, we'll be working on functions. So first of all, we'll be working on arithmetic functions, and the dataset I'm creating in my work library is data called sample. And for that, I'm creating a dummy value a is equal to 11, b is equal to 3, and mod of a comma b. What does mod do? It divides and gives the remainder. So let's run it. 11 by 3 is 9, so my remainder will be 2. So what was the new variable created? R. What was the values variables created initially? A is 11, b is 3. Mod of a comma b is 2. So the remainder is 2, right, when divided by 3. So that value is printed. So this is the function of mod. So mod is an option. So you need to remember that, sorry, mod is a function. You need to remember that function. And this is an arithmetic function. So now I'm creating one more data set called test. And I'm creating do n is equal to 1 to 10. So it creates in the do loop 10 observations totally. And it creates 10 observations from 1 to 10 by difference of 1. What I'm doing here, if mod of n divided by 2, that means if 1 divided by 2 is equal to 0, it won't be 0, right? 1 divided by 2. So if let's say 2 divided by 2 here in the second observation, then result is even. So if it is divided by 2, then print the value of variable result as even. Otherwise, result as odd. So output it. Every do statement should end with an. Anyone? Every do.
Yeah.
So every do should end with an end. So
Yeah, odd, even, odd, even, odd.
so what am I expecting now in my data set? So if it is divisible by 2, if this is mod of 2, right, value will be 0. So even is printed. If the result is not 0, then odd will be printed. So if you want to create any values like that, you can print it. So now I'm using some statistical functions which are used for calculations or something like that, like sum, mean, median. So I'm creating 4 variables. In the variable A, I have value. Let's run it till here first. So I'm just replacing the same data set. So if I open this data set and if I run it, let's run the previous one again. See, now this data set has these values, right? Now just I'm replacing the same data set. So if I am running this program, it won't be printed because, or it won't be refreshed because this data set is open. So you need to close this data set because you are giving the same name for the data set. You are not creating different data set. So you need to close the previous one. So then only the values get updated. And if you see log, you cannot open work.test because that was opened earlier and we are trying to run with the same data set. So you need to close it before you run it because you are trying to run with same name, or you can give a new name. So that might be the issue caused with someone who has asked earlier. So if I run it now, I can see the new values. I have created 4 variables and their values are 1, 2, 3 and 4. So the next step, what I want to do, I want to find their total. There is an option called sum. If you give sum of a, b, c, d, it prints the total of 4 variables. What is 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4? That result get printed here. The result is 10 and it is printed in a variable called total. So I want to find the minimum value out of these 4 variables. What is the minimum value here in the 4 variables? 1, right? So min of a, b, c, d. Then give statement called run. Then minimum value is printed in the variable called min. So I'm creating now 2 more variables. One is total, the other one is min. So in total 10 is printed and the minimum value out of these 4 values is printed. Similarly, I can print max also. I can use count. So what is the count? Totally how many variables? Totally how many different values are present? So what is the count? 4. So for doing count, you should use an function called n. For max, what it does, it prints the maximum value out of a, b, c, d. And what is average? What is average? Average is nothing but mean. So what is the mean? So what it does, it sums up the total values and divide by 4. So average is nothing but sum of a, b plus c plus d and divided by 4. So 10 by 4. That will be my value. That is 2.5. That is expected in the average. So mean sum by n. This is the comment for that. So what is standard deviation? Standard deviation is like a variation of the 4 variables. So let's run this now and check what are the results expected. See, in total 10 is printed, in min 1 is printed, count it is 4 because we are using 4 variables. And what is the maximum value? 4 is our maximum value. What is the average? 2.5. Sum by total number of variables, standard deviation. So all the results are printed. So these are called statistical functions. Let's say in variable b I have value missing, but for a I have 10.5, for c I have 30.3, for d I have 20. Now I want to do sum of a, b, c, d, and let's run this. What's expected now? We haven't closed the dataset. So when you use sum, the value is printed. It is sum of 10.5 plus 30.3 plus 20 is printed. What is the sum? 60.8. Okay. Ignores the missing value. What does sum do? Ignores the missing value. So, but when I am doing something like this, like a plus b plus c plus d, what is the value expected? Any one of you? So I'm creating here 2 new variables. Go ahead.
So if they are numeric, then it should be the same sum of 1, which is 10.5 plus 30.3, which is 40.8, then 20, which is
60.8.
yeah,
So you mean same result is expected, right?
Yes.
right.
Let me run it and show it to you.
Dot.
So I'm creating sum 1 and sum 2. Let me open this now. Sum 2 is
60.
missing.
What? Because the
Because
missing
one
value.
number is not there.
yeah, because it's missing here. This is an like interview question. If
Okay.
someone asks you, what is the difference between sum of A, B, C, D, and what is it same value printed? No, it's not printed, because when you are using this, if it has a missing value, it won't consider the missing value. Same result is not expected. So try to use always sum. That's good practice. If there are any missing values, that will ignore those missing values, and the expected result is printed. But when you do this way, the expected result is not printed. So try to use always the function. So average is mean of A, B, C, D. Mean will be printed. So ignores the missing value again. When you use mean, missing value is ignored. But when you do in this way, missing value is not ignored and result is not printed. So let's check the results for average 1 variable and average 2 variable. So average 1, the average for these 3 variables, their sum and their total by 4 by 3 is printed. But for average 2, as this is missing, let me mute everyone. So, but for average 2, it's missing because it doesn't ignore the missing value. So its same result is not expected again. So what is median? And we are also doing median and standard deviation like we did before. So median will be the median value between the highest and lowest values. What is the highest value here? 30.3. What is the lowest value? 10.5. So this is like kind of median value. So that's printed, and the standard deviation is printed. So I'm creating one more data set called test. I'm taking values A is equal 10, B is equal 23, C is equal 24, D is equal 78. I'm checking the range. What is the range? Range is nothing but difference between the highest and lowest values. What is my highest value here? 100. And what is my lowest value here? 23. What is the difference between 100 and 23? 77. So that's printed here. If you want to do any, you want to find the difference between max and min values, that's difference between largest and smallest values. This is the comment for the run. So that's done. And we are creating one more example called A is equal to absolute of minus 24. What does absolute do? It takes away plus or minus symbols and it prints the value. And exponent of it prints the exponent value of 1. It prints the factorial value. This prints the log value. This prints the mod value. Mod is nothing but division by what is the remainder expected. So remainder expected here is 0. Log here will be around 7 times 3, 21. It should be somewhere around 3, right? So their values are printed. Just remember these functions. Square root of 16 is 4. Let's run this. So it's 120, 3.15. Mod is 0 and square root is 4. You don't need this factorial, you won't be using this, but log, mod and square root absolute will be using a lot of times. Did you see the absolute value? So absolute value is 45. So it takes away negative symbols or anything like that.
What was E?
Exp
What was
is
the
nothing but
exp function?
exponential value. Yeah.
Okay.
You'll be more using absolute, log and mod and square root. That's all. You won't be using much of these two. But just there are functions, so I wanted to say you. Okay, now we'll be, so what did we do till now? We used some of the arithmetic functions. We used some of statistical functions, and now we will be using some of the truncation functions.
What does the log do?
It prints the log of 23.5 logarithmic value.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So now I'm creating one dummy data, and in that I'm creating values. Totally I'm creating 10 observations. The observations I'm creating are 1 to 10. Okay, same I'm doing square root of n. Seal. What does seal do? I have three functions here called seal, floor, and round. So
Okay.
let's say I have result called 12.41, something like this, 412 or something. Seal, what does seal mean? Normally, by seeing the word, what can you say? Seal is nothing but ceiling, top, right?
So,
So it prints the next highest, it sums up to the next highest value. So it is 12.4, so it makes it to 13. So, and if it is floor, it prints the lowest value. Floor is base, right? So it comes up to the lowest value. What does round do? Round makes it to the nearest value. So 12.4 is less than 12.5, right? So it makes it to 12. If it is more than 12 point, if the result is 12.51, that it prints 13. So it rounds to the nearest highest or lowest value round. So seal makes it to the upper value, floor prints to the lower value, and round makes it to the nearest value. So I'm doing n is equal to 1 to 10. Let's see all three at a time. Makes it to the next higher, makes it to the next previous lower, round which makes it to lower or higher, and integer. Let's output it, and do statement should have an end at the end, and we should run it. The dataset we are creating is test. See, what I'm doing first, I'm doing square root. I'm taking square root values, and for square root, I'm applying all these functions. For this square root n variable, I'm applying this seal, floor, and round, and integer. So let's look at, so 1.41. So it goes to the next highest value. It doesn't, it goes to the next highest value, that's all. So 1.73's next highest is 2. 2 is an integer, so it makes it as same value. So on. 2.23's next highest value is 3. It looks for the next nearest integer, next highest integer. But when it comes to floor, it looks for the nearest lowest integer. So 1.41's lowest integer is 1. 1.73's lowest integer is 1. When it comes to round, it rounds up to the nearest value. If it is 1.41, this is less than 1.5, right? So it made it as 1. But when it comes to 1.73, it is closest to 2. So the value printed is 2. Let's look at this one. For 2.44, which is less than 2.5, so in round, the result printed is 2. But when it comes to 2.64, it is closest to 3. So 3 is printed. Integer makes an integer value, closest integer value. It is something like floor. It does some like floor. It just prints this integer value, just like 1. It just takes the integer value. Whatever it is before decimal, it prints that value, integer. So we have 4 functions here called seal, floor, round, and integer. What does seal do? Seal prints it to next higher value, floor prints to previous lower value, and round rounds up to either lower one or highest one, and integer prints the integer value. So those are truncation functions. So what is my integer here?
12.
Yes, negative 12. I'm not using absolute. If it is absolute, what is the result expected here? Absolute of integer, then 12 is expected.
12.
Yeah. So if I use this and integer together, then 12 is printed. So now we are going to character functions. So we have seen what is truncation functions, what is statistical functions, and what are arithmetic functions. Now we are looking into character functions. So here let us run these ones. I'm using these data sets for creating my character. I'm using dataset EMP. So how many variables do I have here? 4 variables. How many observations do I have here? 5 observations. So I'm using this dataset to apply my character functions. So I'm taking dataset EMP and I'm creating new dataset called com. And in the new dataset, I'm using compress. What does compress itself indicates? It is compressing something. So what am I compressing from the employee name?
Space.
From the employee name, whenever you use a function called compress, you need to open brace and you need to give the variable name which you wanted this compress to be applied for. So I wanted this compress to be applied for variable called employee name. So I want to apply it for this. So what do I want to compress? What value I want to compress it? O and T. So I want to compress O and T in all my variables, in the entire variable. So this is called as a delimiter. So whenever you use and compress, you should have the variable name and one delimiter, and both of those should be separated by a comma, and that should be placed in a bracket. So the new variable created is new, and the new dataset created is com. See, if seen here, we are compressing O and T. It compresses all the values called O and T. So the new variable has only SC. See, here we don't have any O and T, so it is printed as it is. This is printed as it is. Here we have O, so it prints the rest of the value. Here we don't have any value. So in the new variable, the characters O and T are compressed. So that's the function of the compress. Now I'm creating new variable called I'm an Indian, and the dataset I'm creating is India. So what can I observe in this dataset? I have an initial space, right? I have an initial space before I, that is called as an initial space, and I have space between I and A, and I have one more space here, and I have more spaces here. Because it depends how you give the space here. So it gives the same number of spaces. So how many spaces do I have here? 1, 2, and 3. I have 3 spaces here. In the rest of the places, I have 1 space. Okay. Now what I want to do, I'm creating variable called new, and in the variable called new, I'm applying this compress function. What am I compressing here? A. I'm compressing variable called A. Let me run it here and show it to you. So in my new dataset called India, A is taken out. It doesn't compress any spaces, only my alphabet A has been compressed. Like we did it for
It is case sensitive.
yes, because you are giving it in inverted commas. If you give anything in inverted commas, single or double inverted quotes, that's a case sensitive. So here my good question, and here it is an uppercase A, so this is not compressed because we have given lowercase a. That's character specific. That's what I want to say. That's character specific. It is an uppercase or lowercase. And here I'm compressing the spaces. So it compresses all the spaces, takes away all the spaces. Here again I'm using in the new 2. I'm just using compress of A. What happens? Let's see. So I'm creating three variables, new one, and new two, and the data set is India. So what happened here? All the spaces has been compressed. Even if you just use compress without any delimiter, it does the same thing. If you haven't used any delimiter, what it tries to do, it compresses all the spaces present in the variable. So don't ever do this. There might be some issue with the values because sometimes you need the spaces. So for that, if you want to compress only one space, let's say here we have three spaces, right? I want to keep one space as delimiter between each value. I want to only delete extra spaces. Like here I have three spaces. I want to delete only two spaces and keep the other space. Then there is a different option called comp-bl. So what this option does is this option deletes only one space. Let me run this. So I'm creating here four new variables now. So what is happening here? Here one space is taken as delimiter, so it deletes the extra spaces. If you want to delete extra spaces, you need to use comp-bl. Don't ever use compress without delimiter, or don't ever use compress with a delimiter called space. That might cause some more issues. Okay, keeps one space as delimiter. Okay,
What is that called?
delimiter.
No, the comp-bl.
Comp-bl.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm creating one more variable, trim of left. What does trim of left do? It deletes the initial spaces. These spaces are called as leading spaces. If any space that is present in front of our entire value, those are called leading spaces. If there is some space at the end, those are called as trailing spaces. So if you want to delete these leading spaces, you need to use option called trim of left. Let's see what happens now. So I'm creating that in new variable called 4. So it only deleted the initial space. It hasn't deleted any double spaces, or it hasn't deleted my single spaces. It only deleted the first space. But when you use comp-bl, comp-bl also doesn't delete the initial space. I have an initial space here in new variable 3, if you can see it carefully. I have an initial space here. So for that, if you want to delete initial space, and if you want to use only one space as delimiter, you need to use both these functions at a time. You can do that also.
Kumar, what does compress of A does?
It does the same function
Only
as the above
compress of
one.
A.
No, it compresses all the spaces like we did in the
Right,
above step.
okay. Yeah. Perfect. Thanks.
So strip, what does strip do? Strip does the same function as trim of left. Strip does the same function as trim of left. Okay, trim of left and strip are the same again. Removes all the leading spaces. See, I have given same comment, that's why. It is the same thing. So try to use strip. That's easier, right? Instead of using trim left 2 times, try to use strip. What does index do? Index of A, it searches for the first uppercase of A. So what is the position of uppercase of A here when we are counting from here? One space is also counted as one character in SAS. So this is one, my first character, I is my second character, space is my third character, and uppercase is fourth character. So it is looking for the position of uppercase A. So what is expected in the last variable? 4 is expected, right? See, this does the same function. Both of them are same. Strip and trim of left are same. And if you do compress either with a delimiter space or without a delimiter space, both of them are same again. So these are
Instead of A, we can use any other characters,
Or A is a specific character in this?
You can use any other character, like let's say I want to
No.
use,
For the compress A, the A is written, right?
no, because that's the variable I have, right? That's the variable we are using to compress. That's the main variable, right? We are working on. We are working on our A variable. All this program is recording this variable. We are trying to modify this variable into different ways, like
Okay.
new one, new two, new three. That's our source variable, right?
Okay.
I can use B here, or I can use any name, but I still need to put the same name here in my compress functions.
Okay, if I put B there, then I have to put
Yeah,
compress B
because
there.
that's the variable name you are working on, right? I'm working on variable A.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. You're trying to modify the variable A in different ways. So now I'm creating data set called shoes. See, whenever you want to delete some data sets or something in work library, if you think that's more, you need to close them first.
Excuse me, is that an error just now? When I start to press in EMP, there is no existing file. Why it cancel?
No, because I'm trying to open the data set and I'm trying to delete those. Okay, now what am I doing? I'm creating data set called shoes. For this, I'm using SAS help dot shoes. So there is an example data set called shoes. Where is it present? Let's go to shoes. This one. I'm trying to work on this data set. I'm trying to make some modifications with this data set. Okay, let's bring this data set in first. So for that, I have to use this code. And I'm creating a new variable. In that variable, what am I doing? I'm using compress of product, comma. In product, I want to compress quotation, single inverted commas. So in this variable, I want to compress this apostrophe or whatever you call it. I want to compress these ones. Okay, let's run it and check it. It does. So where is it printed? In my work called shoes. See, if you see men's casual here and men's casual here, that's gone, right? So that's what we are expecting. So there is one more function called cat. So what I want to do, what cat does is it adds the two variables. I mean, it joins the two variables. So I want to join variable called product and I want to join the variable called subsidiary. I want to join both of these variables. So what is expected? Boots and added is above, right? So I want to join product and subsidiary values. So what are the values present here? I have boot here and I have edidis or above or whatever it is, right? So I want to join this. I have boots here and edidis above here. So I want to join this with both of these. So for this, I have an option called cat. So for the cat, you need to specify a delimiter if you want to. So what do I want to join both of these variables with? Space. And I'm giving here variable names, subsidiary. So what is expected in the result? Boots joining with an space, and both of these will be in one variable called new. In the new variable, both of these are printed together. So let's run this and check it. See, both of those variables are joined. But why do we have so many spaces? Because there might be some extra spaces before this, or there might be some spaces at the end of these boots. There might be extra spaces after this boot. That's the reason we have so many spaces here. So if you don't want to have multiple spaces like this while joining, and if you want to have only single space, like one space as a delimiter. Like we did, what was the option used before? What was the function used before like that? Combl, right? Similarly, we have one more function called catx. What does catx do? It deletes all the extra spaces and it adds only one extra space and joins both of the variables. Now I'm joining three different variables here. See, now what happened? I don't have an extra spaces. I have only single space when it is joining. So try to use catx. So that's good option. So try to use catx, but we need to know cat also because that option is given by SAS. So when someone asks you in an interview, what is the difference between catx and cat, or what is the difference between combl and compress, you should be in a position to explain those. So there is one other way of joining these variables. Instead of using cat or catx, instead of using cat or catx, you can also give the variable name, and we call these as pipes. Pipes is nothing but shift and forward slash, which is above the enter. In your keyboard, the shift and the button above your enter called forward slash. So add product, and if you want to add any delimiter like space, if you want to join product with space, and again you use pipes, and we want to join subsidiary. So join both these variables. So for joining, these are called pipes. These are called pipes in SAS. And with what delimiter you want to add? You want to add it by using space, or you want to add it by using dash, or whatever you can define there. So here what am I doing? Here I'm adding variable product and starting with pipes and then adding with space. And again I'm using variable subsidiary, and again I'm using pipes, and again I'm using single space, and again I'm using pipes and region. So but there are some extra spaces after, right? There are extra spaces at the called as trailing spaces. There are some trailing spaces for product, there are trailing spaces for subsidiary. So a part of these trailing spaces, an extra space is added. So you want to delete those extra spaces, so you're again using combl. So both these does the same function. Catx and the below one prints the same results, but here product's value is printed in the first place, but previously region's value is printed in the first place. That's the only difference. So let's run it and check it. So what is okay? So both the results are same, but only the position is changed because we changed the position of variables, right? But the entire, if you see the result, boots is printed here, same their country, everything is printed. So instead of space, I want to use an hyphen or dash. That's also possible. So let's go and check it. So instead of space, we are joining with an hyphen. We are joining with an dash. So has anyone has questions till now, guys?
No.
Okay, then we can continue. So I'm again taking sashelp.choose and I'm creating new variable called stores one. What am I doing here? I'm using strip. What does strip do? Guys, what
Leading
is,
space removal.
yes, leading spaces are deleted. So we have one more function called put. What does put does is it converts the numeric values into character values. So what does put do? I'm taking the value of stores. So this is a numeric value, right? If you see the attributes of the variable, this is an, what is the type of the variable? Numeric. So I wanted to convert numeric variable into character variable. Yes, I can do that. So what is the function for that? Put. And for that you need to give the variable name and you need to assign any of the format, because formats are assigned to these variables, right? So the some format need to be assigned for converting. It can, you can either say best dot or you can assign specific format. I'm assigning 5.2. So the maximum decimal values printed are 5 and the decimals printed are 2 and the total integer value will be 5. Let me run this and show you what is the result expected. So what is printed here? So if you count it, total how many characters are present? 1, 2, decimal is 3 and 12 is totally 5 decimals. It can't print more than 5 value. Suppose let's say if I want to do this as 5.3, it doesn't print it because we are defining maximum length as 5, right? Let me close this. So I will say more about this formats in formats and informats class again. See, still only 2 decimals are printed because it already reached the length of 5. It already reached the length of 5. What I'm trying to say is,
So if the number is 123, so it will print
so
only
if you want to
123.0.
123.00, you need to define it as, what is its total length? 6, right? 6.2. You should do it like that. Otherwise, if you do 5.2, it only prints till, when you do this, this is the result for this. When you do 5.2, what is the result expected? 123.0. Because if you count it, this is the first one, this is the second one, this is the third one. Decimal is also considered as a character and this is considered as character. So even if you go 5.2, it doesn't print 2 decimal values. So let's go here. Right now what I did, I have given 5.3 and it is not printing it. But if I give it 6.3, it prints it because now it prints the 3 decimal values. If you see previously, it doesn't print 3 decimal values. Now let's go here and run it. See, now 3 decimal values are printed. So the first one is like the length of the variable, and this is the how many decimals you want to print it. But still, if you give 6.2, that doesn't affect because it prints only 2 values. If I run it now, it still prints 2 values. So you can give more length, but you are not supposed to give the lesser length. You can give here 100.2 also, that doesn't affect. If you want here, you can give 50.2 also, that doesn't affect. So what input does? Input converts character to numeric variable. So I'm using this variable now. So input is vice versa of put. So we have created new variable called character. This is character variable and this is numeric variable. Now if I want to reconvert this character variable into numeric variable, yes, I have an option called input. Sorry, function called input. What does put does? Put converts numeric to character. Input converts character to numeric. So you can either give best dot or you can give anything. You can give 5 dot. What best dot does is it prints the same format of, let me run this. when you are converting into numeric, if their values are 0 after decimal, it won't print those. Or if you can also try doing best dot here. You can also, best dot gives the default format. If you give best dot, let me run this. Choose one. See, here also 12 is printed because we're not giving any decimals. It prints the same value here, but it converts into character.
So
Either
what does the best do essentially? Net?
yeah,
It tries to.
it prints the same value. Always, most of the times when you are just converting the values, we should use best dot because you are not supposed to add decimals or something like that. That means you are manipulating the data. But I wanted to show you because there are different formats applicable.
Okay.
But in tables, they ask you to print decimal values in the results of the tables. But in data sets, you are not supposed to modify the values. You can, if you want, you can convert into character or numeric, but you are not supposed to modify the values. But in tables, they ask you to print certain decimal values. Then you can use these formats. Okay, now I'm taking dataset called sasself.class. What does sum do here? I'm creating a new variable called result, and what does sum does? It sums up all the values of age, height, and weight. I'm doing sum of height, weight, and age, right? So it sums up all values and prints in a new variable called result. It's same thing like we did above. Just I'm creating one more example, that's all. So you can use multiple functions, or you can use lot of options for where condition at a time. Suppose if I want to select where age greater than or equal to 13, okay, and height greater than 60. Let's go to this data set. I want to take only, you can also use this, guys. If you go here, data, there's an filtering. You can check it. If you want to check some data, you can use where, and what variable I want to select now. Where age GE refers to greater than or equal to. Look, distant values 13. So I'm only taking values greater than or equal to 13 or 14. So okay, those values are seen. So if you want to use multiple functions at a time, you can do that. And I want to select only height greater than 60, and I want to select weight greater than 100, and I want only males from that. So let's run this data set and check it, and then I want their result. Okay, let's open class 1. Let's minimize this. So what are we doing here? In the first place, we are selecting age greater than or equal to 13. Okay, we got only people, children with their ages greater than or equal to 13, right? Okay, and their heights greater than 60. We got only their height greater than 60 and their weight greater than 100, and only male students. So I can use multiple, if you want to do some other options, you can use multiple things at a time, and then their result is printed. In where class, you can use multiple options. So I'll go through again. So we have discussed statistical functions, like all different statistical functions, and you need to be sure about what is the difference between sum and what is the difference between a plus b plus c and d. So you need to know that. Same thing, you also should know the difference of this, and you know what is range. It is difference between largest and lowest values, and you need to know these functions. Here what ceil does is it prints next higher values. Floor, it prints the previous lower values. And what does round do? It makes up to
Rounds off.
value.
Yeah, rounds off the values.
And integer. It prints the integer, and here we are using compress. You should know the difference between compress of space and compress of delimiter as space, and you also should know the difference with compbl, difference between compbl and compress. Okay, you should also know the difference between cat and catx. It is the same function again. There are two ways of joining the variables. One is either by using cat or catx. The other one is using by pipes. Before 9.3 or 9.2 version of SAS, there was no option called catx. They include a lot of functions in each updated version of SAS. Previously, they used to use only these pipes, but once this option comes, those things were easy now. Instead of adding so many pipes and spaces, you can do it at once, right? So you need to know what is output and input, and that's all.
Can you explain again what is the base dot? The
So
input
yeah,
base dot?
what best dot does is it prints the same format. It doesn't add any decimal values or nothing. Let me run this. So it removes the unwanted decimals. It prints the same value as the source variable's value. Here we are adding decimal values, right?
Oh,
Two decimal
okay,
values.
okay.
If I do best dot for this variable also, only 12 is printed.
Okay.
It won't print those decimal values because those are created because here I'm using 5.2. That's why two decimals are printed. Or you can
Okay,
just use 5, then nothing gets printed.
okay.
Any questions, guys?
No, sir.
I downloaded my SAS 9.3, but I'm not able how to install that. Whatever zip you have provided.
So, as I showed you everyone that just go to your downloaded folder and go to disk 1 and go to setup file and try to install it.
Thereafter, it asks for the
Disk
ID
2 and
file
disk
somewhere.
3, yeah. So then you need to go to, once it asks for different file, you need to go to, you need to link up this folder there. And after CD2 is completed, you need to go to CD3. This is like 3 CDs. Entire software is in
Okay.
3 CDs.
Okay, in CD1 we only have to do setup, right?
Yeah, setup, and it asks for a lot of next steps and which version you want to download, English or what other languages you want to download. And when it is downloading, it also asks for a Java file. Then your system date should be current date because the Java file will be downloaded from internet. So once that Java file is downloaded, again you can change your date to 2013 date. So
And then
Okay.
I think it asks for SID files. Then you go in there and there is a code you have to put in there, and then for the
Right.
next
So what is the SID file?
yeah, that's what I did, and then only it recognized, and then it
So I
Right.
think
So what?
these
What is
files
the
should be,
SID?
yeah,
Hold
these
on.
files should be downloaded.
No. What is the SID file? So
yeah, in the first one, SID file, there is a long key which you have to enter. Means you have to select basically in browse window.
So I say browse, and which file am I looking for right now?
Not here. In the first setup one, sid.id, I think.
Most of the times that path should be automatically coming up in most of the cases.
Yeah, for me it says the file has expired. I see the licensed software. It says August 2013, 31st.
You have to change the date.